Okay, so today, class, we're going to learn how to factor trinomials. Factoring trinomials, you can ignore the last part because the way I teach it, it doesn't matter if it's equal to 1 or not. It doesn't matter. All right, so we're going to factor trinomials. Before we go through our steps, the first thing I want you to realize is we need to know that that 2 or that number in front of the x squared is a. The number in front of the x without an exponent is b, so this is -7 would be b. And then this number out on the end, or the number without a variable or a letter, is c. First thing we're going to do is we're going to check to see if there's a greatest common factor. Is there a number that goes into 2, 7, and 5? And there is not. So we're finished with step 1. We're going to go to step 2. We're going to find the factors of a times c. Well, we just labeled it. So a is 2 and c is 5. So we're going to do 2. So a times c equals, what is 2 times 5? Well, it's 10. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to factor, or we're going to list all of the factors of 10. Now, a little trick is we want to list them twice. So we know 1 times 10 gives me 10, but I'm going to list it twice. I'm going to tell you why in just a sec. All right? Next, find the next factor. Does 2 go into 10? Well, on your calculator, if you did 10 divided by 2, it would give you a whole number, and the answer would be 5. So 5 goes into 10, 2 goes into 10. We're going to list that twice. All right? The next thing we're going to do is, now we're going to put some signs with this. We need the factors of positive 10 that are going to add up to be what b is. So we're going to pick the pair of factors whose sum, or if I add them up, equals b. Might sound confusing, but I think we're going to catch on, so stay with me. Well, positive 1 times positive 10 gives me positive 10. But so does negative 1 times negative 10. That's why we're listing them twice. Positive 2 times positive 5 gives me positive 10, but so does negative 2 times negative 5. It also gives me positive 10. What you're going to notice is if this number is even, then you're going to have a positive, a negative, and a negative, a positive, and a positive, and then a negative, and a negative. And then I'll show you what happens when it's negative here in a second. And guys, we're not doing all of these, so don't freak out. We're probably not going to do any of those. I think we're going to do maybe 3 or 4 of them. All right, so the next thing it tells us to do, like I said, pick the pair, the factors of a times c, we did the factors over here, who basically add up to give me b. Well, in this case, my b is -7. So you're going to do in your calculator, does +1 plus 10 give me -7? No, it gives me 11. -1 plus -10, does that give me -7? Nope, it gives me -11. 2 plus 5 gives me 7, but I need it to be -7. -2 plus -5, I would use plus every time I do this. -2 plus -5 gives me -7. So I know that in my parentheses, so my answer is going to kind of look like that right there. My numbers in here are going to be -2 and -5, okay? Now, if this number right here was a 1, we would be finished. But it's not a 1, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to divide each factor by a, and then we're going to reduce our fractions. Well, remember our a was 2. So basically, we're going to take this number, and we're going to divide that number by whatever my a was, 2. That should be x minus 5, and then I'm going to do -5 minus, or divided by 2. And you're going to ask yourself, if I punch -2 divided by 2, or make a fraction, and had it enter, does it reduce, or does it simplify? And it does, it turns into -1. So that's just going to be x minus 1. Next, I'm going to do this -5 over 2. So I'm going to create another fraction. I'm going to put -5 on the top, 2 on the bottom. I'm going to hit enter. Didn't do anything. If I hit the double arrow button, it turns into a decimal. So I know that is the smallest that fraction can be. So if it doesn't reduce, we're gonna take this number and put it up here. It's called bottoms up. On this one, it reduced, it simplified into a whole number, so I didn't move this number up front. But on this one, it does not simplify, so this 2 is gonna go in front of that x. 2x, and then the other number just stays the same. That is your final answer. Guys, we're gonna do a lot of these, so we're gonna get better at it. It's kind of overwhelming at first, but again, don't let it freak you out, all right? Let's do another one. So 3x squared minus 10x plus 3, we're gonna check for GCFs. It does not have. 3 doesn't go into 10, so I can stop right there. It does not have a GCF, and there's no other numbers that go into 3. Next, we're gonna do a times c. Well, 3 times 3 times 3, a times c gives me 9, okay? And it's positive 9, so when I list my factors of 9, we're always gonna start with 1 and whatever the number is, but remember, list them twice. And then the only other numbers that go into 9 is 3 and 3. Now, it's positive, so I want both to be positive or both to be negative, both to be positive or both to be negative. So now I'm looking for the combination or the sum of these that gives me negative 10. I'm right here, I'm gonna pick the factors of a whose sum gives me whatever that number is, negative 10. Well, 1 plus 9 gives me negative or positive 10, so but that's not it. Well, negative 1 plus negative 9 gives you negative 10. So here are my numbers I'm gonna start with. X minus 1 and x minus 9, all right? Well, I've got a number up front here. So I'm gonna divide both of these numbers by whatever that number is. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you negative 1 over 3 doesn't reduce, so I'm gonna do bottoms up. That number's going up front. 3x minus 1. Negative 9 divided by 3 gives me negative 3. So I don't do bottoms up over here. I just simplify that fraction and write my answer. I'm gonna show you a little quick trick to see if you're correct. If you'll take this first number and multiply it by whatever's there, so 3x times x, it should give you what's right here, and 3x times x gives you 3x squared, all right? Let's do one more. And then, like I said, we'll do lots of practice in class. First, let's look for a GCF. Well, 5 and 39, there's no GCF. There's no number that goes into 5 that also goes into 39. So we can stop there and move on to the next one. Next, we're gonna do a times c. 5 times negative 8. So a times c equals negative 40. So remember, these were positive. This one's negative. So we're gonna do something a little different, but we're still gonna start off by just listing my factors twice, okay? 2 goes into it, so I'm gonna put 2 and 20. 3 doesn't, but 4 does. Hopefully I don't run out of room. I'm gonna keep going there. 5 goes into it, 5 and 8. Again, I'm gonna show you how to find out the factors in class. 6 doesn't go to it, 7 doesn't go into it, 8 does go into it, but I already have it listed. All right, so here's where it gets a little different than when it was positive. If it's negative, we want our signs to zigzag. So basically, because here's why. 1 times 40 doesn't give me negative 40, but 1 times negative 40, excuse me, does give me negative 40. So basically, one of my numbers on each row has to be negative. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna zigzag that negative throughout, down the columns. So if you'll see this, my negatives just kind of zigzag down my columns. Because 1 times negative 4 gives you negative 40, negative 1 times 40 gives you negative 40, 2 times negative 20 gives you negative 40, negative 2 times 20. So that's really why we list them twice, okay? So now we're looking for the sum, right? We're looking for the pair that add up to give me what my B is. My B is negative 39. Well, 1 plus negative 40 gives me negative 39, so that was nice. We're finished. We're not finished, but we're finished with the factor part of it. And we're gonna write exactly what we see. That's a positive 1, so that's a positive 1. All right, just like that. There's a number here. We're gonna divide by A. A is 5, right? That's what it tells me right here. Divide each factor by A, so we're gonna divide by 5. Well, 1 over 5 can't reduce. So I'm gonna do bottoms up. That's gonna go up front. 5x plus 1. Well, negative 40 over 5, if I punch that into my calculator, reduces to negative 8. So this one becomes x minus 8. All right? And that is my final answer. Again, to check it, I'm going to take this first term, multiply it times that term. 5x times x is 5x squared. That's what I started with. Let's do one more. This one's going to, yeah, let's do one more, and then we'll call it a day on these notes. All right. So we're going to look for a greatest common factor. There's not a number that goes into all of these, okay? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a times c. Well, a times c gives me 12. A times c equals 12. It's a positive 12. And we're going to need that. Remember, we're going to list our factors twice. Okay? And the fact that it's positive, we want both our signs to be the same. So we're going to leave these first two positive. Then we're going to make our next two negatives. Make the next one's positive, the next one negatives. Next one positives, next ones are negatives. All right, so now we're looking for whose sum is b. So we're going to look at, when I add these together, which one gives me negative 8? Well, 1 plus 12 is 13. Negative 1 plus negative 12 is negative 13. 2 plus 6 is 8. Ooh, but I need it to be negative 8. Negative 2 plus negative 6 gives me a negative 8. So I know these are my numbers I'm going to use. X minus 2. X minus 6. Remember, now I'm going to divide by whatever number's right here. And it's 3. Well, negative 2 over 3 doesn't reduce, so that 3 is going to bump up or come bottoms up and go there. 6 divided by 3, or 6 over 3, is going to give me 2, but it's actually negative 6, so it's going to be x minus 2. Let's do our quick little check. 3x times x gives me 3x squared, so that one is correct.